What is going on, traders? Welcome back to the Traveling Trader. Happy Tuesday to you. Today, I wanted to get into the price of Bitcoin, obviously, as we start most videos, because that is what most of you are here for. And then I'll talk about the stock market. It was a pretty big earnings day for a lot of stocks, especially those that are on the Dow Jones. I'll tell you what plays we made in anticipation of those earnings, and then I'll give my outlook on the potential short-term future of the market. So let's get right into it. Looking at the cryptocurrencies, you'll see that the market cap is lazily sitting at 225, and I say that because it hasn't really moved. You'll see that on the price of Bitcoin, how really stagnant the crypto market is. And a lot of you tend to get bored during these periods, and there are some plays to make. I'll go over what plays one can leverage during a really boring sideways market. But for most people that aren't traders, I mean, this is either an accumulation zone or it's just a sitting and waiting zone. And a lot of trading is actually sitting and waiting. You don't always have to actively be in trades. That's kind of a myth where you're constantly in and out of trades all day, every day. That's not really the case with trading. A lot of trading is waiting for optimal times. And right now, if you're not using leverage, if you're not a swing trader or day trader, you're probably sitting and waiting or dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin and some of these other coins as well. But the big winners in the top 10 or top 20, I should say, Binance Coin up 18% over the last week. And then you have Wobi token, which is another exchange coin, up 15% over the last week. If we go further down the list, you'll see BAT, which is a coin that we did send out a trade alert for, up 11% over the last week. And then 0x up 36% over the last week. So there were a couple of coins that had some really nice gains, but overall the market is pretty stagnant. Looking at Bitcoin, you'll see that, as I was talking about, this stagnant period here. Now, a lot of us get caught chart watching, thinking that there is some value to that, monitoring the charts incessantly 24 hours a day. But you could get tired of that really quick. And here's why I say that. Bitcoin has an uncanny tendency to trade sideways, right? It's tenacious in that way. If you look at the period here between September 2018 and November 2018, look how tight this range is. I'll hide the moving averages so that it's a little clearer for you, but look at how tight this range is here between September and November. This was almost 2 months. If you go back to, between December 2018 and really April 2018 and April 2019, you'll see the tight range that it's in here. So Bitcoin does have a tenacious ability to trade sideways for a very long time. And if we pull up the moving averages, well, currently we're below the 200 moving average here, right? It's been going on for almost 2 to 3 weeks. And if you're saying to yourself, well, how long can Bitcoin stay under the 200 moving average? That surely won't last long. Well, guess again, my friend. Look over here. If you go all the way back to March 2018, this is when we fell below the 200-day moving average. We were below the 200-day moving average for the entirety of that period, right? From March 2018 all the way until April 2019, when we finally went above it, when we crossed that $5,000 mark again. That's over a year that we were under a single moving average indicator. So don't underestimate Bitcoin's ability to stay under these moving averages. As a matter of fact, when it does fall under the major moving averages, it tends to stay under. And when it's riding a moving average like that, like here, back in September 2018, it was just riding the 50 and the 100, which were very close, but it was riding the 50 and the 100-day moving averages really closely, staying just below it until it finally dipped. And it's done this a few times in history where, it rides the moving average just under it very closely before seeing a crash or some, further downside action. So, Bitcoin can easily continue to ride this 200-day moving average here before finally seeing another decline. And we are in a descending channel, which, especially if we're coming from an uptrend, seeing a descending channel, this is a continuation pattern that you expect to break to the upside eventually. And I do expect it to break to the upside. However, if you look at the support of this channel, there is, it does really justify some downside action here that could take us down to 7,000, potentially below that, depending on how long this runs for. So, while I do expect a break to the upside eventually, and we will break this descending channel to the upside eventually, it could be 2020. I mean, it doesn't have to be this year. It could be as we near the halving again next year, right? And if you look at the weekly, you'll see that the weekly, is forming a bullish pattern as well in the form of this bull flag. However, like I said, we could see some more downside action. Now, the weekly, the good thing about the weekly is it's holding above the 100-week moving average, which is this yellow line here, right? And as long as we stay above that, then, we'll be fine. However, if we break below that, we could break this pattern, this bull flag here, and we could eventually get to retesting at least the 50-week moving average, which is currently at 6,800. If we look at Bitcoin's chart on Bitstamp, because it gives us a little bit more history, in my view, a retest of this 50-week moving average at around 6,800 is the most plausible move, right? So if we go back to, let's see, if we go back to, you can go back to September, October 2014, you'll see that Bitcoin was riding that 100-week moving average for, almost 2 to 3 months before finally declining. You'll see that up here as well in the middle of 2018 when it was flirting with the 100-week moving average before finally dipping below it. So really the only moving average that Bitcoin has shown to bounce off of convincingly every time is the 200-week moving average, as it did back here in 2015 and it did back here in the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. Otherwise, every time that it's flirted with a moving average, with riding a moving average so closely, it's dipped below it. So, and then if you look at the volume itself is pretty shit. I mean, it's trending downwards, right? It's not impressive at all, and that points to a potential downside break if we don't get any significant volume coming in. So if we look at the daily and we look at the weekly, I do think that a further downside break is warranted. And in terms of support level, we will see that 50-week moving average acting as initial support. Obviously, we could break below that, but I don't want to get too hyperbolic here. I do like to move in steps and see how the price reacts to certain levels. So we might ride this 100-week moving average for quite a while before breaking to the downside if we don't get that volume and retesting the 50-week moving average. That's my analysis on Bitcoin as it currently stands. But based on these descending patterns, right, like the bull flag on the 1 week or the descending channel on the daily, we will eventually break to the upside as long as we remain within this pattern. So how I'm playing Bitcoin, I'm really just using leverage. And, I do love these tight ranges because it makes it so easy to trade Bitcoin. If you want access to the trade alerts, link is in the description. I send out all of the levels of these trades that I'm making. But, when you do have identifiable support and resistance levels within a tight range, it becomes really easy to play Bitcoin within this range, longing at 7,800, shorting at 8,500, and continuing this pattern until it no longer exists. And obviously, if you're doing it with leverage, then you're maximizing your gains. And, if you do it 3 or 4 times successfully, then you really have less and less to lose over time, and you can continue playing the trend until it ends. And the one time that it doesn't bode well for you, or it's not a successful trade for you, you essentially have tight stop limits here because you do have identifiable support and resistance levels. So if you're taking a long at 7,800, for instance, you could set your stop limit pretty close to where your entry is. And vice versa, if you're shorting here, you could set your stop limit pretty close to where resistance is. So that way, if the trade doesn't work out, you exit without much harm. And so it's a fairly low risk, high reward trade in that regard. And like I said, if you keep exploiting it 3 or 4 times, then by the 5th time, if it doesn't work out, you've already profited multiple times off it previously, right? So same thing with Ethereum. I sent out an alert for Ethereum. Ethereum was in this extremely identifiable range here, where there was some resistance at around the 200-day moving average, 200 moving average on the 4-hour. And there was some support here at, 179 and below, almost around the 100 moving average on the 4-hour. So, shorting Ethereum at the 200 moving average has been a pretty easy play for us as well. A couple of other trades that have been pretty lucrative apart from the top coins is BAT. We're now up 22% on BAT, and it hit our target here of 28.65 where this yellow line is. You see BAT just continuing this bullish price action, really great volume coming in. You see the OBV rising. You see the 50 flirting with crossing above the 100. This is a mini golden cross. And if BAT can cross this level here, this resistance level, which is based on really this historical level that you see here, if BAT can cross this, then the next level up would be around the 200-day moving average here. 3,500 sats. In situations like this, you would set a trailing stop, especially if you're up 20% plus. You'd set a trailing stop of, say, minus 5%. And so if BAT does fall by 5% at any point after establishing a high, you book profits. And that way you don't have to manually contend with whether you should sell or not or take profits or not. Let's look at Chainlink real quick, because Chainlink has been I think one of the, if not the best performing coin of the second half of 2019. But we were up 47% on Chainlink since entering, and now it is finding a continuation pattern. It looks like it's flirting with flagging here at around the 0.618 fib level. After being majorly overbought, this might be the most overbought that it's been on the RSI ever. It is definitely taking a break. Obviously, traders, bearish traders, just like bullish traders, tend to get exhausted of the trend that the coin or the stock is currently in. And just like all things in nature, it has to regress to the mean. So we need to see a cooling off period. But, if the RSI is cooling off while the price action remains at a pretty steady level, that's a good sign that the rally will continue thereafter, right? So if the RSI starts cooling off, the price remains at the 0.618, that's a good indication that, one, it's flagging, and two, we will see a continuation of this rally. And I do think we will see a continuation of the rally on Link until at least we get to this swing high level here of around 35,000 sats. But yeah, since the second half of 2019, Link is up 100, almost 109%. So that's, an insane amount of gains there. All right, let's take a look at the stock market. And if you see here, yesterday I sent out alerts for how to play the earnings reports today. There was a few huge companies on the Dow Jones that were reporting earnings, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, United Healthcare. So I did send out some alerts yesterday, and we are now up 8.3% on United Healthcare. I think JPM is up 3 or 4% today. Again, I sent all this out in the trade alert, so sign up if you want access to that. Looking at the individual stocks, if you look at United Healthcare, you'll see that, again, I say that if the technicals are good, then the fundamentals can provide a further catalyst for upward movement. So regardless of whether the earnings were good or not, from a technical standpoint, United Healthcare was in a perfect setup. This right here is called a double bottom, right? We hit this bottom in April, we hit this bottom in September, and just like the leverage trades that I was talking about on BTC, when you buy close to this support, it's a pretty low risk trade because, essentially your stop limit can be very close to your entry. Whereas if you're buying in the middle, your stop limit, if you're setting your stop limit below support, it could be very far off from where you entered, and it could end up making your trade upside down where you're not really getting a good risk to reward ratio. But yeah, JP Morgan hit our target of $240 today. It is seeing some resistance at the 100 moving average. This is a sector where I would look to take profits as soon as I have them, because the healthcare industry, especially with the upcoming presidential election, and there's a lot of talk in the US about Medicare for all, regardless of where you stand on that politically. From a stock perspective, insurance companies and big healthcare companies could be taking a hit based on the perceived consequences of a Medicare for all system. Anyway, looking at the stock market itself, you see the Dow, the S&P, the Nasdaq are all up around 1 or 1.1%. That's because a lot of these big companies have reported positive earnings. The other one that I was talking about was JP Morgan. Let's take a look at JP Morgan real quick. Yeah, looking at JP Morgan, I mean, you have this clear resistance level here. And again, this is one where I would look to start taking profits, even though it hit a 52-week high. But, JP Morgan's been at this level, at this range before, going all the way back almost 2 years now to February 2018, right? Every time it knocks on the door here at this resistance level, we do see a decline. So we could establish all-time highs as we continue moving forward. But it is one where I would look to at least set a trailing stop in order to book profits, because of how stubborn this resistance level has become. But you look at JP Morgan, same thing. I mean, from a technical standpoint, you have a cup and handle here, right? Bouncing off of the 50 and the 100 moving averages. You have the golden cross between the 50 and the 200. You have the golden cross between the 100 and the 200. You have a MACD that is just beginning to cross over. So from a technical standpoint, all the technicals were there, and you could have played JPM's upcoming earnings report based off of the technicals alone. And obviously, I'm not saying that if the technicals are good, if JP Morgan, for instance, reports horrible earnings, yes, you could see a decline. But the bullish pattern itself and the good technicals itself, if you didn't even know what was going on from a fundamental standpoint, you can justify entries at those levels with tight stop limits. Again, you want to get into low risk, high reward situations. So, it's a low risk, high reward because the pattern itself was bullish. You could set a tight stop limit below your entry. And if it does work out, in the case of JP Morgan or United Healthcare, then you get to book those profits. If it doesn't, then it hits your stop limit and, you're out of the trade without much harm. All right, we'll go over one more stock that continues to bear fruit, and that's Shopify. We bought Shopify at the dip at around 303, I want to say, and we're up now around 15% on Shopify. It took a really healthy retracement here after really just killing it for the entirety of 2019. If you look at Shopify, it's been up 250% before seeing this decline here. I mean, this is like crypto level rally. I am a little wary of it here coming up against the 50-day moving average, so I will be setting a trailing stop to protect this 15%. But yeah, that's just a glimpse of the coins and the stocks that I'm trading, how I trade them, what my strategies are, where my entries and exits are. All of this stuff I send out in the trade alerts in our Discord group. So if you want access to that, sign up. Link is down below. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, leave a comment if you have a question or a comment. Hit that thumbs up. I do a 0.03 Bitcoin drawing on the first of every month for all members. And if you need help with technical analysis or want one-on-one training with me to get your charting to the next level, that same link is also in the description. So sign up. Stay safe out there, traders. Peace.